Freedom of media, its political concept. The press freedom plays a vital role upon the situation or status of politics in the Philippines. Looking back, the history of the country is highly influenced with press freedom, practically during the time of revolution. Today we will discuss about the freedom of media of our country in different period to start with the initial pages of the Philippine press. Del Superior Gobierno is the first established Philippine newspaper year 1811 by the Spanish governor whose content is the news from Spain and intended readers are the Spanish local. La Esperanza is established year 1846. It is the first daily newspaper of the country. Its content is dealing with non-controversial subjects such as science, religion, and history. The best edited newspaper is Diario de Manila. After 38 years of publication, it was suppressed by the Governor General, allegedly for inciting the Filipinos to rebel against Spaniards. El Ilocano is the first local publication started in 1893, while El Hogar is the first publication for and by women established at the same year. Its history can be forced back from the nationalistic newspaper established in Europe in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial rules. Its aim is to increase consciousness with respect to the oppressive condition prevailing in the country then. It was mainly published and written by the Ilustrados. La Solidaridad is established in Spain and first appeared in 1898. It is the fortnightly organ of the propaganda movement and is considered the mouthpiece of the revolution to work peacefully for social and economic reforms, to expose the real plight of the Philippines, and to champion liberalism and democracy. It is indicated policy. Other newspapers which is advocated to political reforms includes Kalayaan year 1898. It served as the official organ of the revolutionaries. La Independencia year 1898 was the most widely read newspaper of the revolution. Other newspapers like La Libertad and El Heraldo de Iloilo are also some examples. The early Filipinos used the power of pen to prove feasibility of using nonviolent strategies for social and political reforms to continue. The Manila Times year 1898, the Bounding Billow and Official Gazette 1898, Manila Daily Bulletin 1900s, and the Filipino Free Press 1908 are newspapers published by mostly American journalists to replace the one that existed. Some of these publications still exist in the current time. By the year 1920, the first pro-Filipino newspaper came out in the Philippine Herald. El Nuevo Diva, The New Day, which is published in Cebu, and El Renacimiento for attacking regressive taxes, big government, and abusive capitalists and landlords. The Tagalog newspaper Sakdal is considered the most popular among the masa. These newspapers are among those nationalistic newspapers during the regime that are suppressed by the American. When World War II broke out, the publication used by the Japanese are the only allowed newspapers, namely Manila Tribune, Taliba, and La Vanguardia. Under regular censorship by the Japanese Imperial Army, and all the other existing publications were banned by Filipinos were not left without alternative. During this time, the underground newspapers are used to provide information to the people. Year 1945 to 1972, which is the post-war era and pre-martial law period, is referred as the golden age of Philippine journalism, where the Philippine press began to be known as the freest in Asia. During this period, the press functioned as the real watchdog of the government, focusing on the national issues and critical upon the government mistakes and abuses. Mauro Mendez, Arsenio Lacson, Jose Bautista, and some of the double-minded writers and editors during this period of time. The press of this period was forced into marriage of convenience with large business enterprises and political groups. In fact, during this period, the publishment of newspapers are owned by large business complexes. Between this period, year 1953, television was first introduced in the country with the opening of DZAQ-TV Channel 3 of Alto Broadcasting System in Manila. It was owned by Antonio Quirino, brother of President Elpidio Quirino. It was later bought by the Chronicle Broadcasting Network, owned by the Lopezes, and started broadcasting year 1956. It is then called ABS-CBN that is known today. During this period, newspapers had its component, but newspapers had control and interest in other media, particularly radio and television. Year 1952, the National Press Club was organized to promote cooperation among journalists and uphold free press and dignity of journalists. Year 1964, the Philippine Press Institute (PPI) was organized to foster the development and improve the journalism in the country. The Marcos years. September 21, 1972, martial law was declared on the country by President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr., where it stated to take over and control of all the privately owned newspapers, magazines, radio and television facilities, and all other media communications. Editors and journalists were among the first to be arrested and incarcerated in military prison camps. During this series of years, the Daily Express and Bulletin Today or Manila Bulletin were allowed to open the Times Journal a month after the proclamation. As expected, the press during martial law period was highly controlled by the government. Many journalists learned to practice brinkmanship and even self-censorship in order to survive or avoid direct confrontation with the regime. To counter, propaganda churned out by the pro-government private media and the government-owned media infrastructure, so-called alternative press, emerged in the 90s. Publications during this period included We Forum by Jose Vorgos and his son, Veritas by Felix Bautista and Melinda de Jesus, Business Day currently known as The Business World by Raul and Leticia Locsin, to name a few. At the end of Marcos's term, President Aquino and the government formed the Philippine Information Agency after the abolition of the Office of Media Affairs on December 24, 1986. Year 1987 when the Philippines Press Institute was re-established after it was paralyzed under martial law. 1988 when the PPI and the National Press Club adopt Journalist Code of Ethics, and from this period, the press freedom was gradually restored. Current situation. The current situation of the political concept in press freedom includes President Rodrigo Roa Duterte's decision to revoke ABS-CBN broadcast franchise and pursue tax evasion charges against Rappler and Inquirer. Although freedom of media is in particular to politics in the Philippines has evolved from consecutive periods, as of now, press freedom is still considered as a controversial topic in the country, especially because of the emergence of high technologies. Among the issues are red tagging, misinformation, and troll armies are some of the critical issues revolving in the country, particularly affecting not just political concept of our nation, but the society as well. As due to these particular issues, the citizens cannot directly determine which information is legitimate and which is not, and is the reason for various speculations.